There are moments when the atmosphere surrounding the British royal family changes almost overnight, and this may be one of those moments. For months, the world has watched King Charles continue his public duties while undergoing treatment for cancer. But now, fresh attention is once again turning toward the monarch's health, and this time, the focus is not simply on what the palace has said publicly. It is on the people closest to him. Prince William, Queen Camilla, and the increasingly important question, how is King Charles really doing behind the palace walls? King Charles revealed in early 2024 that he had been diagnosed with cancer after a separate medical procedure. Since then, Buckingham Palace has deliberately kept many details private. The palace has released updates when necessary, but it has not provided the public with a complete medical picture. That silence has naturally created questions. And whenever there is silence surrounding a monarch, speculation tends to fill the space. Now consider the roles of Prince William and Queen Camilla. William is not simply the king's eldest son. He is the heir to the throne. Every development concerning Charles's health inevitably raises questions about the future of the monarchy and the responsibilities William may one day inherit. Camilla, meanwhile, occupies an entirely different but equally significant position. She is the king's wife, his closest companion in public life, and someone who has witnessed his health journey from a uniquely personal perspective. That is why even the smallest public appearance by either William or Camilla can attract enormous attention. And recently, that attention has intensified. Reports indicate that King Charles has continued with a substantial schedule despite his treatment, including major public appearances and events. His ability to remain active has offered reassurance to many royal watchers. But here's where the story becomes more complicated. A person can be continuing their duties while still dealing with a serious illness. Those two realities are not mutually exclusive. And that is something the public sometimes forgets when watching the royal family. Behind the ceremonial appearances, the handshakes, the speeches, the smiling photographs, and the carefully organized engagements, there is still a 77-year-old monarch undergoing treatment. That is the reality. And it is precisely why every sign of fatigue, every change in schedule, and every comment from members of the royal family can suddenly become headline news. Now, let's talk about Prince William. William has increasingly become one of the central figures in the monarchy's future. His position means that questions about his father's health inevitably become questions about William's preparation. Would he be ready if circumstances suddenly changed? Would the palace have to accelerate plans for the future? And perhaps most importantly, how much does William actually know about his father's condition? There is no verified evidence that William has announced some devastating secret diagnosis. But his proximity to the king means his reactions naturally attract attention. The same is true of Camilla. For years, Camilla has stood beside Charles through some of the most difficult periods of his life. And during his cancer treatment, she has continued carrying out her own public responsibilities while supporting the king. That makes her position emotionally complicated. Imagine being both a senior working royal and the spouse of a monarch dealing with cancer. Every public appearance becomes a balancing act. Every expression can be analyzed. Every misengagement can trigger rumors. And every appearance together can produce a completely different interpretation. One photograph can be described as reassuring by one outlet and concerning by another. That is the strange world of royal reporting. But there's another important development that cannot be ignored. The monarchy itself is operating under extraordinary pressure. The royal family has faced controversies, internal disputes, questions surrounding other members of the family, and intense public scrutiny. Recent events involving Andrew Mountbatten Windsor have added another layer of difficulty to an already complicated period for the institution. Parliament has also been considering potential changes concerning the line of succession, following the king's earlier action regarding Andrew's titles and honors. For Charles, therefore, health is not simply a personal matter. It has constitutional implications. It has family implications, and it has implications for the future of the crown. That is why the public is watching William more closely than ever. If Charles were ever unable to perform his constitutional responsibilities for an extended period, the machinery of government and monarchy would have to respond according to established constitutional procedures. But that is very different from saying that such a transfer is currently happening. There is no confirmed evidence that King Charles is stepping down. There is no verified palace announcement saying William has taken over the throne. And there is no credible confirmation that Camilla has revealed a secret terminal diagnosis. Those claims should not be presented as established facts. Yet the underlying story remains compelling, because King Charles is still navigating a serious health journey while attempting to maintain the enormous responsibilities of being monarch. And according to recent reports, there's actually a reason for cautious optimism. His doctors are reportedly pleased with his progress, and the king has continued appearing at major public events. That is important, but it does not erase the seriousness of his diagnosis. And perhaps this is where the real royal drama lies. Not in an invented palace emergency, not in an imaginary secret abdication, but in the uncomfortable reality that the king is balancing treatment with duty while the next generation watches carefully. William knows that one day the responsibility will be his. Camilla knows that the man beside her is not simply her husband. He is a sovereign, and millions of people around the world are watching every step. So when headlines claim that William and Camilla have confirmed tragic news, viewers should pause and ask one critical question. What exactly has been confirmed? Because a confirmed story is already serious enough. King Charles has cancer. He remains under treatment. His health is being closely monitored. And despite the challenges, he has continued performing public duties. The rest, the whispers about sudden deterioration, secret transfers of power, or an imminent change of monarch, requires evidence before it can be treated as fact. But there is one question that remains hanging over the entire institution. What happens if the king's health eventually prevents him from continuing at the pace expected of a modern monarch? That question brings us directly to Prince William. Because if Charles's health journey takes an unexpected turn, William will not simply be watching from the sidelines. He will be at the center of whatever comes next. And Camilla's role could become even more important. The palace will have to communicate carefully. The family will have to remain united, and the public will demand answers. For now, however, the evidence points toward a monarch who remains active while continuing his treatment, not a monarch whose death or abdication has been officially announced. And perhaps that distinction is the most important part of this entire story. Because in the royal family, the truth can sometimes be overshadowed by the noise surrounding it. And as Charles continues his health journey, the world will continue watching William, Camilla, and every move coming from Buckingham Palace. The question is no longer simply whether King Charles can continue. The bigger question is, how will the monarchy prepare for whatever comes next? And that is where the story becomes even more fascinating. But there's another side to the story that deserves attention. When a monarch becomes seriously ill, the public naturally begins looking beyond the individual and toward the institution. What happens to the crown? What happens to the royal schedule? And what happens to the family itself? For King Charles, these questions became unavoidable when Buckingham Palace announced his cancer diagnosis in February 2024. The palace did not disclose the specific type of cancer, its stage, or the precise treatment being used. That privacy has remained important. And even today, the public should be cautious about claims that supposedly reveal secret medical details. Because there is a significant difference between confirmed royal news and internet speculation. One particularly important development came in December 2025, when Charles himself provided a hopeful update. He explained that, because of early diagnosis and effective treatment, his cancer treatment schedule could be reduced in 2026. That was undoubtedly significant. But it was not a declaration that the king was cured. And that distinction matters. Reports at the time emphasized that although treatment would be substantially reduced, the palace had not described Charles as being in remission or cured. So where does that leave the royal family now? According to reporting published just days ago, Charles and Camilla have been spending time at Birkhall in Scotland during their summer break. The same report says doctors are very pleased with the king's progress and that he has resumed most of his royal engagements. That is hardly the picture of a monarch who has been officially declared incapable of carrying out his duties. Yet it is also not a reason to pretend that the health issue has disappeared. Cancer treatment is often a long journey. Progress can be encouraging while monitoring continues. And that is precisely why the king's family remains so important. Now think about Prince William. For William, this period is more than a test of leadership. It is also a period of preparation. The Prince of Wales is already carrying out major responsibilities, representing the monarchy at home and abroad, and supporting important causes. But there's an emotional dimension that cannot be ignored. He is still the king's son. Behind the formal titles, William is dealing with the health of his father. And that makes every public appearance between the two men particularly meaningful. The same applies to Camilla. She has been beside Charles throughout his treatment journey, while continuing her own royal duties. Her role has sometimes been misunderstood. As queen consort, Camilla is not the monarch. She does not inherit the throne. She does not automatically become sovereign if Charles is unable to work. But she can provide something enormously important: stability. And during a period of uncertainty, stability may be one of the most valuable things a monarchy can have. Imagine the pressure. Every time Charles appears in public, cameras capture his face. Every movement is examined. Every pause is analyzed. If he looks energetic, commentators call it reassuring. If he looks tired, social media begins asking whether something has gone wrong. This constant scrutiny can create a distorted picture of someone's health. A single photograph cannot provide a medical diagnosis. Neither can a video clip. And neither can a rumor posted online. That is why the latest credible information is so important. At the moment, the available reporting points toward continued treatment and encouraging progress, not an officially announced catastrophic deterioration. But there is still a question hanging over the monarchy. How long can Charles maintain this pace? That question is not necessarily a prediction of disaster. It is simply a realistic question about the future. The king is 77 years old. He is continuing a demanding schedule, and he is doing so while dealing with a serious illness. Even with encouraging treatment results, the royal family cannot simply assume that everything will remain unchanged forever. This is where William becomes increasingly important. If Charles needs additional rest, William can shoulder more responsibilities. If the king reduces his schedule, other senior royals can step forward. The monarchy has mechanisms for dealing with temporary absences and periods when the sovereign cannot personally carry out certain duties. But that is very different from an abdication or change of monarch. And there is currently no confirmed announcement that King Charles has abdicated. There is also no confirmed announcement that William has become king. So why do such rumors spread? Because royal succession is inherently fascinating. People want to know what the future looks like. They want to know when William will become king. They want to know what Catherine's role will be. They want to know whether Camilla will remain at the center of royal life. And whenever Charles's health becomes part of the conversation, those questions become even louder. But perhaps the biggest misunderstanding is the idea that a health diagnosis automatically means the end of a monarch's reign. History shows that monarchs can continue serving while dealing with significant health challenges. Charles himself has demonstrated that. He has continued public engagements during treatment, and in 2026 he has remained visible at major events. Recent reporting noted his appearance at the opening of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow and at the RHS Sandringham Flower Show. That visibility matters. It tells the public that, despite his treatment, the king remains active, but it also tells us something else. The monarchy is learning how to adapt. William is becoming more prominent. Camilla continues her work, and Charles is balancing public duty with personal health. That may ultimately be the real story. Not a secret palace takeover, not an unconfirmed death announcement, but a royal institution adjusting to reality. And that reality is deeply human. A father is dealing with cancer. A son is preparing for a future he knows will eventually come. A wife is supporting her husband. And millions of people are watching. There have even been bizarre incidents that demonstrate just how quickly misinformation can spread. Only yesterday, a British radio station mistakenly broadcast a pre-recorded announcement suggesting that King Charles had died. The report was false. The station had accidentally played archival material. That incident is a powerful reminder. A sensational headline does not make something true. A dramatic video does not make something confirmed. And a claim that the palace has revealed everything should always be checked against credible reporting. So, has Prince William confirmed tragic news about his father? No verified evidence currently supports a claim that William has announced a devastating new diagnosis or imminent abdication. Has Camilla confirmed that the king is dying? Again, there is no verified evidence supporting such a conclusion. What has been confirmed is serious enough. King Charles's cancer remains under treatment, and his medical journey continues. But there's also encouraging information. The king previously announced that his treatment schedule could be reduced in 2026, and more recent reporting says doctors are pleased with the progress. That combination of seriousness and optimism is probably the most accurate description of where things stand. And perhaps that is why the public should pay attention to what the royal family actually says, not what rumors claim they said. because the next chapter of the monarchy will eventually arrive. One day, William will become king. But that day has not been officially announced as imminent. For now, Charles remains king. Camilla remains beside him. William remains heir to the throne. And the palace continues to navigate one of the most delicate challenges any royal household can face, protecting a family member's privacy while maintaining public confidence. The coming months could reveal more about Charles's health journey. His schedule may change. His treatment may evolve. His public appearances may increase or decrease. And William may continue taking on additional responsibilities. But until Buckingham Palace announces something different, the responsible conclusion is clear. King Charles is still carrying out his duties while undergoing ongoing cancer treatment, with recent reports offering encouraging signs about his progress. That is the story worth following. Not the rumors, not the fabricated palace emergencies, not the dramatic claims without evidence, but the real human story unfolding behind the crown. Because every royal photograph tells only part of the story. And behind the palace gates, the future of the monarchy continues to take shape, one day, one decision, and one health update at a time. What do you think about King Charles's health journey and the growing responsibilities of Prince William? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated on the latest developments involving King Charles, Prince William, Camilla, and the royal family, make sure to subscribe. Because when the next official announcement comes, the entire world will be watching.